We get a lot of questions about how we plan our travels, how we choose locations, what websites we use in our planning. The list goes on and on.
So today we're going to explain our process. We're going to share with you the shortcuts that we use and talk to you about how we plan each leg of our journey.
We're John and Bev, and we are the Retirement Travelers.
If you're just finding us, we are full-time senior travelers. We get so many questions about the logistics of travel that we wanted to create a series called Travel School. Now, this is a free series to help you learn how to be savvy world travelers. We are placing all of these videos on our website, retirementtravelers.com, so check out our site. You can sign up for our newsletter there also.
And if you're wondering where in the world we are as we travel, you can follow us on Instagram. We keep it updated to our current location, so follow along with us there. We also do lots of stories, so you can see exactly what we're doing on a daily basis.
In our first video of Travel School, we shared with you the cornerstone of our travel planning, a colorful spreadsheet system designed by Monday.com. Now, in this video, we explained how we set up our travel planning spreadsheet to help us stay organized.
Now for us, we need a system that we both like, because it takes two of us to plan a whole year's worth of travel. We generally take about 2 big trips a year, and we end up booking the flights, hotels, and excursions for each week of our travel. Now, without a good system, we end up repeating tasks, we lose information, we occasionally double book, and make a huge mess of the whole process.
We've made every mistake in the book. It was out of necessity that we were forced to look for a system that we could customize to fit our needs. We sit down twice a year to do our planning because we have no time to do it as we travel. In our first year of traveling abroad, we tried to be more spontaneous and make decisions on where to go on the fly, but it was very difficult. Because we are active travelers, the best way for us to travel is to plan during downtime and know the plan when we are traveling.
In the end, we happened upon Monday.com and it fit our needs. And it came with a phone app that we can keep all of our details at our fingertips, as we went through airports and train stations. And if you haven't watched that video, please go back and check it out. Bev will walk you through the setup and explain this system. It's awesome, and we are thrilled with the program.
Our second video in the series talks about how to estimate your budget when you're planning a long trip. In this video, we share our budget goals. We really try to help you estimate what a long journey will cost you in 2024.
Last week's video was how we nab bargain business class tickets. Now, if you're like us, you're kind of past the days of being cramped up in economy, and especially on those long haul flights. So check it out. We hope it gives you a few tips on how you too can nab these tickets.
So let's talk about our travel plan. When we started to travel, we took a look at the world map and divided it into regions. This helped us to make a comprehensive long-term travel plan. Our first 5 years would be our active travel years. We're on our third year abroad, and we expect to visit most of these locations by the end of 2025.
Most of our travels these days are 4 months long, give or take a little. Like we said in last week's video, we start with finding the best business class ticket to one city in the region. Once we have this, we start building a trip around it. So 4 months is a nice length for us, and we like to stay about 1 week in each location.
The first thing we do is research, and for that, it begins with researching the weather. Now, we don't want to travel in cold weather, and we really just don't like to be too hot. So timing is everything. We consider the rainy season, and we know now to consider the burning season in Asia when farmers burn their fields. We use a site called weatherandclimate.com. Now, this site has the best weather information by month.
Once we figure out if it's a good time to visit weather-wise, we start making a list of our favorite places and we put it on Monday.com. We add and subtract places as the plan comes together, but our wish list goes up. Now, as far as how we choose the places, we love to read other blogs. We use suggestions from other travelers, really just anything that suits us. We examine maps and we look for areas and research them. In this case, Google is our friend.
Before we start finalizing our plans, we research festivals and national holidays. Now, we travel on Wednesdays for 2 reasons, but the most important is that festivals and special events often fall on the weekend. We like taking part in these because we get festive food, great music, and happy people to interact with.
The other reason that we like Wednesdays is it's a low travel day. On the weekends, you get the local travelers, and at the beginning and the end of the week, you get the business travelers. So if you're in a country, say you got to cross the border or drive across the border, midweek is always better. The traffic is lighter and the lines are usually shorter. So also Wednesdays are probably the cheapest for flights as well.
The next step in our travel planning is to see if we can string these locations together. Now, the website we work with in this phase is RoamToRio.com. This is a website that you can add your destinations and explore different modes of transportation to get you between the 2 points. So let's say you're traveling from Vilnius, Lithuania to Warsaw, Poland. Rome to Rio gives you the option of a flight, a train, a bus, or a car. Now, in this case, they say the flight is 4 hours, the train is 8.5 hours, the bus is 8 hours, and the car is 5.5 hours. If you click on each option, it will show you what flights are available or what train is available.
Now, we consider Rome to Rio to be a great resource, but it is not 100% accurate. Now, when we started our trip planning, we thought it was, but it's really not, okay? Our advice is to use it as kind of an overall cheat sheet, but research before making a firm plan. In our trip through the Balkans, we assumed that we could take some trains that actually didn't cross the borders, so be careful with the information. Overall, it's a really good planning site, but we never book on this site and we use it as a starting point for our trip planning.
Now, if we're looking for trains in a country that we're not familiar with, we often refer to a site called Seat 61. Now, this is a site that gives great overviews of different train journeys. If the gentleman that writes this blog has been on the route, he will post information on it. Now, if he's not been on the route, he will post other travelers' accounts. Now, if he tells you that a ride is great, you can trust him. He's very active on the site and he keeps the information current.
This guy rocks. Now, once we have this overview of a route, we start to nail down the schedule. You must remember, just because Rome to Rio says there's a flight or a train, it doesn't mean it's necessarily so. Oftentimes planes and trains only run on certain days of the week, depending on the country. So once we have a route, we start with the first city and we work in order. That's very important. The last thing we want to do is book a hotel and then can't get there in time.
So beginning with the first city, we book our transportation first. Now, we might look at the hotel and know whether or not they have a vacancy, but we book the transportation so that if we need to adjust the number of days, we can. After we book our route, we book the hotel.
Sometimes a train reservation won't be available when we start planning. Remember, we're 6 to 12 months out many times. Some train routes only open up about 90 days before the date of departure. So we use a site called Rail Ninja, and who wouldn't want to use a site called Rail Ninja? I mean, what a cool name. What this site does is it takes your information and your desired booking, and when the train company opens up this route, Rail Ninja automatically sends a reservation request to the train company and they book your ticket. You'll receive an email, when your ticket is confirmed.
We're really bad at setting reminders to book a train, so we use Rail Ninja and we don't have to worry about getting the booking. You can request a seat with a table and a window, and we usually get what we want. The company books global trains, so you can rest assured that you're getting a good service.
Speaking of rail, we're often asked if we buy Eurail passes. Now, we have bought them in the past, but we've found that unless you're going to make a lot of long trips that are very costly, you're probably better off just to buy point-to-point tickets. It's easier than having to worry about making reservations once you get to Europe. Plus, to make this work, you need to stop in many locations over the course of a fairly short time. So even with our quick pace, it's just not worth it to us.
When we traveled in Europe last year, we took ferries, even an overnight ferry. We rented a car a couple of times. We hired a couple of drivers. We took trains, buses, flights, and even cruise ships. Now, we say this to encourage you to try lots of different modes of transport. When we first started traveling, we didn't consider buses. But once we took the first one, we realized that this was a method we should embrace. Now, our favorite is trains, and if there is a train route, we'd rather take a train than a bus because the rail line has a better view than the highway.
When we book ferries, we like direct ferries. Now, for drivers, we use a site called mydaytrip.com, and for buses, we usually use Flixbus. Now, each of these, plus the different train companies in Europe, they all have apps. So when you book on a site, download the app and make a folder for it on your phone so you can keep all of these things organized. And if you're planning a long journey, set up Monday.com to track everything and add these confirmation codes to your spreadsheet.
We get a lot of questions about how we find hotels. Now, we like Booking.com for several reasons, but the most important is probably that you can see at a glance what the star rating is by category from other travelers. This is probably the most important part for us. All the fees are included and we know the price up front. They have hotels and long-term rentals. So all the cleaning fees are included and there's no hidden cost. We also are at the top tier of their loyalty program, so we like getting that discount. When we book 6 months ahead, we don't have to pay in advance like we did on Airbnb.
Now, one thing we take advantage of is the free cancellation. Now, we do pay a slightly higher rate, but we have the ability to make changes with our plan. This gives us added confidence that if we do want to make a change, we can.
We've noticed when we check into many hotels where we've received a room on Booking.com that they often have a sign at the check-in desk that asks people to book directly with them. So we often look up the price on Booking and then we do a Google search to see what the cost is if we book direct. Now, many times the price is better, so we book direct when we can.
Our favorite travel hack is still the World of Hyatt hack. We just love it. Now, if we can use credit card points at a Hyatt property, we book them first. Right now we're in India and we are loving the Hyatt properties that we've stayed at here. The breakfasts are the best in the world. It is nice to stay in a luxurious hotel for free, especially when the streets can be a little chaotic.
Just a little bit. When we book hotels, we look for locations that are near public transportation. While we may use business class tickets for long haul flights, we pair those with subways and metros. Now, we're not afraid of hopping on these every chance we get. We've taken subways in most every place we've traveled to, even New Delhi, India, and it turned out to be a great one.
Oh, it was a great experience, and the people were so nice on the metro there in Delhi. I mean, they refused to let Bev stand up. They would get up and let her have a seat. So they were super sweet. So now when, public transportation is not available, we would rather take Uber over a taxi, mainly because we can pay on the app and we don't have to exchange money. It's also very clear what the charges are for. But the big method of getting around for us is to walk. We love to walk. It's great exercise. Our family calls this forced marching, and sometimes we agree, but we do get a lot of exercise. Honestly, it's one of our favorite things about travel is just, wandering around a city. It's one of the favorite things we do. We just walk, talk, and enjoy each other's company.
If you're planning a trip, be sure to check out our website, retirementtravelers.com, for our travel blogs. Now, we try to write a guide for each city that we visit. Our goal is to give you a finely curated experience that combines well-known information with subtle facts. Now, we include everything from Michelin star restaurants to local dives that are special to hawker stands that the locals have directed us to. Our goal is to give you a great travel experience, and we firmly believe that if you follow our guide, you'll have a great visit to each city.
At least that's our goal.
It is our goal.
When we want to hire a local guide, we often use tours by locals, and for excursions, we like Get Your Guide. When it comes to excursions, we don't always book these early. We research them, but we generally book once we get there. We just like the flexibility, of being able to change our minds once we arrive in a city. Our big caveat is popular tourist attractions during high season. Be sure you pre-order your museum tickets like the Louvre or the d'Orsay before you arrive. Getting a ticket to the catacombs in Paris is difficult over Christmas, and we learned our lesson when we were there last time. So book those early and skip the lines.
When you're planning a big trip, be sure to pay attention to visa requirements. Many countries have e-visas these days, but you need to apply for them ahead of time. Now, we keep a column on Monday.com to remind us of what the visa situation is for each country we plan to visit. This is good to note when you're in the planning stages. Now, there are still a few countries that require a visa before you leave home, so know that when you are in your planning and make a note of that.
One more bit of advice. We register with the U.S. Department of State's Safe Traveler Program to let them know that we're in a foreign country. In the event of a national emergency, we want the government to know our whereabouts to assist us if we need to be evacuated. Earthquakes, tsunamis, and war can happen without warning, and we think it makes good sense to have a backup plan.
In next week's video, we're going to go over packing again. We've made a few changes to our system, and we want to talk through a few of these updates and also respond to the many questions we've gotten since our last video. Let us know if you have any questions about how we trip plan, and we'll see you next week.
Be sure to hit subscribe and follow along on our retirement journey around the world.